Good morning, and I thank you all for coming here to this IEP meeting for Enrique today. My name is Mr. Few. I am Enrique's primary instructor. I am responsible for his math, science, and history courses, as well as his homeroom instructor. So for the purposes of this IEP meeting, I am going to give you an overview of my observations about how Enrique does in my classroom. We are going to take a look at his Woodcock-Johnson scores. I am going to give you an overview of his present levels of performance, his strengths, his areas of need, as well as his goals going forward so that we can improve upon the foundations that we have been building for Enrique over the course of the last year. So first of all, as his primary instructor, I observe Enrique for approximately 3.5 hours a day. And from what I know, Enrique has a very strong desire to learn. He is a curious young man. He also is willing to take risks in the classroom. Now, when I ask a question, he is willing to answer, despite the fact that his answer might not be correct, which is a good thing. I like when I see students taking risks in the class. It tells me that my classroom is safe, and it also tells me that the students feel comfortable enough to share what they think the answer might be, despite the fact that we don't always get it right sometimes. So with that being said, I also spend time with Enrique on an individual basis to help improve his skills as well as academic ability. I scaffold his instruction to help him build upon the foundational elements that I give him to continually increase his difficulty and remove the structures of support. It's also nice that I have Carla in the class. I get an opportunity to work with both of them, and it allows me to teach them how to help each other doing homework in areas outside of the classroom. I would also like to share that my observations are based on the empirical evidence that I gather in the classroom, which is exit tickets, classwork, homework, quizzes, that sort of thing. I also allow me to see where I can help him. In addition to these the classroom evidence that I gather, I have given Enrique some formal assessments to help determine where I can provide support and where he may be doing just fine. So first of all, we gave him a variety of assessments over the course of this IEP preparation period. First of all, we gave him the Woodcock-Johnson 4. I gave him 2 Ames-Webb's reading probes, which helped me determine what his vocabulary and his reading comprehension levels are. I also gave him a San Diego Quick Reading Assessment. I did attempt to give him a story starter writing probe and an Ames-Webb math computation probe, which Enrique didn't want to participate in, and I understand that because we had given him quite a few assessments at this point, and I think that he was done mentally. So with that being said, we're going to take a look at his Woodcock-Johnson, and give me a moment to get to that particular assessment. So in terms of Enrique's Woodcock-Johnson assessments, this is a broad-based standard assessment that we have to give them, and it goes over a variety of skills. So for this, I provided a summary based on Enrique's written language, and for this particular cross-test analysis, we're going to take a look at his spelling test. So the spelling test for Enrique measured his ability to write orally presented words. So Enrique took a look at the words and was able to write down what he saw in this particular picture. He spelled the words that were easy and accurately first, which is typical, but as the more challenging words were presented to him, he struggled a little bit. All in all, he scored a 20 out of 36 on this particular assessment. So he was given 36 words, and he scored 20 correctly. The next one that we gave Enrique was the sentence fluency test. This test measured Enrique's ability to formulate and write. This is a 5-minute test that required the student to write sentences in response to pictures and 3 words. So he's given a picture and he's given 3 words to formulate a sentence and sort of fill in the blanks, so to speak. In this particular test, was 5 minutes. Enrique was able to complete 5 sentences, which for his age and grade level, it was a typical pace. So we did very well in that particular assessment. For his writing sample tests, this was a test that Enrique was tested in his writing responses to a variety of demands, and then he was asked to produce a sentence. And then we were evaluating the sentence on the quality of expression. In this particular assessment, he was able to do 7 sentences. Again, they were simple sentences, but adequate for his age range and his grade level. So moving on, we did a math calculations test, which basically is what it is. It measured Enrique's ability to perform mathematical calculations, adding, subtracting, 2-digit problems. He was also able to multiply and divide simple single-digit equations. In this particular assessment, he made no attempts at division or more complex algebra that we might see in 8th or 9th grade. He also was able to score 10 right out of 25 in the initial time frame, which is pretty good, all things considered. As with the writing, he did well at the beginning on the simpler problems, but as we got into the more complex equations, we started to run into some difficulties, which again is pretty typical for students his age. We also did a math fluency test, which was basically a test that allows Enrique to do calculations in a 3-minute time frame. And in this particular assessment, he was able to accomplish 37 correct out of the 160 that were possible. However, I don't think it's possible to do 160 in 3 minutes, so I think he did pretty well in this one. So we're going to move on to Enrique's strengths. So in terms of his reading, Enrique is able to do most sight words relatively easy. He is able to read and sound out multisyllabic words, including words such as early, believe, and carefully. He is also able to answer explicit and infer what a passage says. This is with prompting and support. He does struggle a bit with doing that on his own, but with support in place, he does just fine. He's also able to answer literal grade level questions when the text is read to him. So when I read, he's able to comprehend and give me back information that is provided within the text based on his ability to hear and understand. So his needs suggest that Enrique is reading below his grade level. His areas of need and areas that we need to develop are his reading, his comprehension, and his fluency. And that ability affects his ability to provide textual evidence for his assertions when analyzing tests and drawing inferences. Like I said before, that is an area that he does very well in with support, but we need to try to move away from support all of the time to allow Enrique to build the skills and put the foundations in place so that he can accomplish those tasks by himself. In terms of his writing strengths, Enrique is able to generate ideas using a graphic organizer, and he's able to apply what he puts into his graphic organizer into a simple paragraph. He is able to follow a model that is given to him by his English teacher when he does put a paragraph together. A simple paragraph, a simple introduction, a support paragraph, and a conclusion. and he is able to use a variety of words, and he's acquiring transitional words into his vocabulary that help him make connections from paragraph to paragraph. In terms of his writing needs, what Enrique needs to do is just work on his editing. This is pretty typical for all young writers, to work on putting together a finished product. That would include spelling, punctuation, grammar, those types of things. And improving his ability to utilize the writing process as a whole. Children his age tend to make mistakes spelling, punctuating, and it's not unreasonable to see that he would need help in that area. That is a continual area of growth for all writers, and I see that in Enrique as well. So in terms of his math, Enrique can add, subtract, multiply, and divide multi-digit numbers and regroup these numbers on a consistent basis, again with support. The support comes from his peers, his sister, for instance, and his classroom accommodations. He is also doing well with factoring, least common multiples, greatest common factors. He's doing well with prime factorization and simple ratios. We've been working on this quite a bit in class, and he's picking it up quite well. So what we need for math in terms of his areas of improvement, we need to work on adding, subtracting, multiplying more complex numbers. And we also need to work on doing these simpler equations so that we can commit those to memory, so we're not spending so much time thinking about what 2 plus 2 is, for instance. We can just know that it's 4, move right through that, and get to using our skills to work on the more complex programs and equations, because the simpler stuff and the rules have been committed to memory. So with that being said, I'd like to give you a IEP goal that would have to do with his annual reading goal, and this comes from his English teacher. Enrique will cite at least 2 pieces of textual evidence to support analysis of the inferences made from the text. So what we're asking him to do here is to basically comprehend what he's reading and be able to cite what he has found, textual evidence. This would be supported by a work sample, 2 out of 3 trials with 80% accuracy. So with that being said, what we would do is we would ask Enrique to provide 3 instances of textual evidence, and he would need to have that be correct 2 of those 3 times. The incremental reading goal would be that he would cite 2 pieces of textual support analysis at 70%. So what we're going to do is we're going to build upon what we're teaching him so that he can eventually achieve the annual goal through the development of the incremental goal. So the incremental goals are basically the same. We are going to do 2 pieces of textual evidence, and we are going to build upon the percentage correct. So we're going to ask for 2 correct responses 70% of the time, 2 accurate responses 75% of the time, eventually getting him to that consistent 80% mark, which is his annual goal. The same would be true with his annual writing goal. So we're going to work on his annual writing goal, which is going to be to develop his planning, revising, editing, and rewriting, as well as his editing. This is the writing process. Again, we are going to use a work sample to determine whether or not he's hitting that goal. We are going to ask for 2 out of 3 trials with 80% accuracy to determine whether he's hit that annual goal. Again, we are going to scaffold up to the annual goal by using incremental goals with a 2 out of 3 trial at 70% for an incremental goal, and we are going to do 2 out of 3 at 75%. So again, we are going to incrementally build Enrique's skill through scaffolding, support, and accommodations to get him to that annual goal of 80% accuracy, 80% of the time. This would be the same with his math. So what we want Enrique to be able to accomplish for his math goals would be that he would be able to accomplish the task of completing a sixth grade level problem with a solution. Enrique will explain his method, he will derive the solution, and he will demonstrate an understanding of how he got to the answer through the steps of his work. This again would be 80% accuracy, 4 out of 5 times. We would also use scaffolding for Enrique to be able to accomplish his math incremental goals. Again, we are going to ask the same thing, but we are going to bring down his accuracy rate, and we are going to scaffold through support and accommodations to get him to that 80% level. In addition to that, we are going to have a 7th grade transitional goal. So based on the information that we gathered, we are going to prepare Enrique for a transition to the 7th grade. So we would like him, in terms of his math, to be able to accomplish a 7th grade level problem. This would be the same as what we asked Enrique to do for his 6th grade goal, which is to be able to solve the problem, to be able to demonstrate the solution, and to explain how we got to the solution through the steps and rules. And for this, we are going to ask him to accomplish the task 4 out of 5 times right, or accurate, at a 65% level. So what I'm trying to do here is to build a foundation. I'm not expecting Enrique to be perfect going into the 7th grade, but what I would like to see Enrique do is have a solid foundation that we're building into a 7th grade transition, so that when he does get into a 7th grade math, he has an idea of what's going on, and he has a basic foundation so that he's not starting from scratch, and he has an idea of what to expect and has some success in those areas as he moves into the 7th grade. So for that, what we would like to do is see Enrique work in terms of implementing these skills. And as we move into his 2nd semester in the 6th grade, we are going to utilize pre-writing strategies for his writing. We're going to continue to use graphic organizers. We are going to continue to show Enrique how to use brainstorming skills and plan his writing, so that when he gets to put together a paragraph, we will have an idea of how he can put his thoughts on paper in a coherent manner based on his brainstorming, based on his graphic organizers, based on pictures. In terms of building his math skills, I would like to implement an explicit or direct instruction strategy. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to set time aside with the help of the paraprofessional in my course, and give Enrique individualized instruction so that he can understand what's expected, he can understand the lesson, he can highlight concepts and skills that we want to focus on, and we are going to provide precise instruction so that Enrique can connect his new learning to what he's already learned. So again, we are going to scaffold information to Enrique so that he can continue to build upon his skills. In this particular context, we are going to do it individually, 3 or 4 times a week, setting time aside, using an instructor as well as myself to give Enrique the time he needs. Now, with that being said, I have a number of assessments that I'd like to have you go over. I'm going to pass out this information and let you view it. I have photocopied it, and I am going to hand those out now. These are the assessments that we gave Enrique. If you have any questions, please ask. If you have any other concerns that you'd like to share with me, I would be happy to answer those questions or share those concerns. I would also like you to understand that I am available to you whenever you need me, by phone or by email. I would ask that you just don't wait for back to school night to come talk to me. I will be in contact with you as well. So when I see Enrique doing well, I will send notes home. I may even make phone calls to give you feedback that Enrique might need as we move through this process of developing his skills in this second semester. I thank you for your time. I would also ask that you would please reach out to me if you have any concerns. I thank you for your time today, and I'm going to turn the meeting over to our special education coordinator, Mr. Burrell. Thank you very much for your time today.